Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. This is Bussy, and here coming at you with another deck profile. I've been promising my Earther deck for Wars TCG, so here you are. You're gonna get it as I've promised. But before that, I just want to give you a quick shout that the man cave will be changing again. So come the new year, maybe even before Christmas and New Year's, we'll be having a different location. So yeah, that's that. Let's get into the deck profile. So, when it comes to wars and the Earther faction specifically, there's a couple of ways you can take your deck building down the way. There is a build that focuses on adding attrition. There is also a build that focuses on you having a bunch of Kaizen in play, which is one that I will be covering one day. This one is the XeLabs, or XeLabs, I think, deck where I'm predominantly utilizing the effect of Z-Racer and Optical Delusion. Both of these cards where the Z-Racer in itself can just drop into any battle. If you can make that with two Z-Racers, you immediately are guaranteed to also have a Destiny pool as well, assuming of course you have a ship there, because if you don't there will be no battles naturally. But you can do very much the same with any of the other Z-Labs we have in the deck with Optical Delusion, or you can do it with a Z-Labs unit as well. To Well, you have to pay the full cost, but as you can see, this interrupt costs nothing. So with this in mind, and I'm gonna come back to these cards in a second, let's start with the locations. I'm a little bit torn with the starting location, but perhaps Venus Research Lab is the best one. First of all, playing it as your starting location will basically go around the slight drawback on the research base, and it will straight up give you 2 energies. Your opponent gets nothing, so it is a perfect starting location. I kind of want to keep the play around Venus for our side, and then you go and mess with our opponent's stuff on their locations. So we do have the Yacht Works for Venus. This is also really good because it can make one of our ships power +5, so it should be fairly easy to defend. 4 copies of Venus Trade Route, and this is here for 2 reasons. A, it is a Venus location again, and of course we want to see encampments. We're also running Expansion, which of course is a very important card for any deck, but you can make it possible for your opponent to be quite difficult to reach your Yacht Works, for example, or your research base. You just put all these trade routes there, so they have to pay a bunch of energy to actually get to your stuff. Alternatively, and probably even more important than that, obviously, encampment. These can go, even though it is a sector as you play it, as an encampment doesn't matter. It can go under sectors and it can go under sites as well. So I'm running this because this is kind of a little bit more a space focused deck, but we also have enough ground to be able to deal with stuff. We're running the Gulamon Correctional Facility. This is another really good starting location, by the way, if you want to take this build to a more site-based, ground-based deck. It is just fantastic to make your opponent's stuff 1 extra energy more expensive for basically pretty much anything that they are trying to play, which is just fantastic. We do, of course, run Earth. It is another strong card, and it can also be good as your starting location for sure, especially that extra support. And you probably shouldn't really have a problem to get a ship down to Earth. We're also running the corporate HQ because we do have a few vehicles, and every once in a while, if you get that freebie to be able to play one of the perhaps a little bit more expensive units, warrior units, from your hand, that this can be quite useful. There is a bit of a warrior theme in the deck, but it's still something I'm playing around with. Again, if you want to take it that way a little bit more, this is a fantastic card, and it could also be a starting location. And then finally, I have Luna Military Outpost, It's a really good card, and specifically for this deck, I am running a few capital ships in the deck, and again, that's so that we can drop fighters for no cost. That is another extremely good way of being very reserved with our energies. These two are both very good in that means. So as you could tell, we are running 10 locations, and I'm gonna be testing definitely with 10. You could argue for 9, you could argue for 11. Right now I feel 10 is a pretty nice number for this. So as I said, at the core of the deck we have surprise, and which surprise, that is up to you. It could be the Z-Racer, or it could be done through optical delusion. Unfortunately, I only have 3 copies of optical delusion. If I had a 4th one, that would definitely be here, maybe one day. It is an uncommon from the second set, so it is just a matter of, you know, I guess I don't want to open more boosters, but maybe if somebody wants to send me one from the UK particularly, let me know. I'll probably pick it up. Z-Racer costs 3. You only need the 1 support icon, which is fantastic. It works immediately off our starting location. You can play this ship at full cost at a sector where a battle is taking place. Anytime you could play an interrupt, and you lose 1 energy to do that. Yes, it might be a little bit of a costly thing, but it is definitely a 3 power, 2 tactics, 4 defense fighter ship. And you know, if you don't want to lose the energy, you could technically also play this out with optical delusion, because it is a XeLabs ship. However, I would say that I would normally reserve the optical delusions for not for Z-Racer cards, but for other cards that can't come out as a surprise in other means. So this is at the core of the deck. Let's see what XeLabs stuff we have then to be able to power out with optical delusion. First of all, as I said, we are keeping very much around Venus, and what better fighter to play from the Earther side than the Venus Garrison Fighter. Just like the XeLabs Racer, the Venus Garrison Fighter is also a non-unique ship, so you can have up to 4 of it out in play, and as long as this ship is at a sector that has Venus in its title, this is actually a 4 power, 2 tactics, and 7 defense ship for a measly cost of 3. That is absolutely marvelous, and as I said, it's a XeLabs ship, so you can also drop it with optical delusion. I'm running 2 copies of the XeLabs Type 4. I think 2 is the right number to go with. 3 would be a little bit too much, predominantly because this is of course a unique ship, so you can only have 1 of this in play at any point in time. And of course the 3 support costs are a little bit expensive, particularly early game, hence why we got the low cost garrison fighters. But what this ship does is absolutely amazing. Once per turn you can lose 3 energy and put target ship here in its owner's hand. You may use this ability only during your move phase. You can use this ability to turn this ship comes into play. So one of the great things about this ship is that it does guarantee you removal. It doesn't matter how you look at it, but if your opponent is running relatively expensive ships, and also remember, wherever the ship goes, the pilot goes as well, so you can have a nice little 2 for 1 here. Yes, you do lose 3 energy, which is a hefty price to pay, but your opponent may have just spent a whole turn bringing one of their ship into play, put a pilot on it, and especially if you have the Golemon correctional facility out and you've actually taxed them for it as well, then that's quite an expensive push back into the hand. Certainly one of my favorite ships, and the reason why I built this deck is because of the Shadow Surfer and Rogan Hallard. If you haven't read the Warsong Stories, the first volume was reprinted last year, and it is still up for sale on Amazon. Guys, grab it, read it. It's a fantastic read, and the guys are doing an excellent work in reprinting all the novellas that came out decades ago, plus adding new storylines as well, which is absolutely amazing. Anyway, Shadow Surfer is another XeLabs ship. This is a capital, and so it works really well with the Luna military outpost. The captain is Rogan Hallod. We're running 2 of Rogan Hallod in the deck, and of course, as long as Rogan Hallod is piloting this ship, this is immune to attrition, and this ship also can't be targeted by your opponent. It's just amazing. It is very difficult to deal with this ship. It's got very nice stats, and when you get Rogan Hallard on it, Rogan Hallard also has piloting too, so +2 power, +2 tactics, +2 defense. What more do you want? And you can drop it with optical illusion. Lastly, we have 3 more capital ships. Again, these are in here predominantly to run with the military base. And it does give us very cheap options for moving our ground troops as well. So whilst we don't have any of the outer rim locations, particularly we don't really have Ganymede stuff, the Juggernaut Tender will allow us to actually put quite a lot of our units on it, because it's got a capacity of 8. We can put vehicles on it as well, and the vehicles, you can drop a vehicle for 3 energy once a turn, anytime you want, which is absolutely amazing. Your opponent's about to battle you, you pay 3 energy, you drop a vehicle there, and now maybe they will not want to do that. Or maybe you do this after they paid to initiate a battle. And also, each movement targeting a unit aboard this ship costs 1 less energy to perform. So it's just absolutely fantastic. I really like this card. It's a recent addition, but it does work really well generally with what we're trying to do in the deck. As I said, we are running 2 copies of Rogan Hallard. I like this unit just based on the fact that it draws Battle Destiny on its own. Another XeLabs unit, so it comes down with Optical Delusion. Piloting 2, as I said, and then you can invert this character and undamage your target character in a battle here. So one time you can pull off this healing effect with it. It does use a little bit of power, and he does lose a bit of power. He does lose a bit of defense, but he keeps the tactics at 4. And again, it's really just like a once per... It doesn't say once per game, but we can't really uninvert him. So unless we lose Rogan Heller somehow and replay Rogan Heller, that's how you're going to be able to use that effect, perhaps more than once. You probably won't use it more than once or twice a game anyway, but particularly in here because it goes so well with the Shadow Surfer, and again, I love the storyline from the book. We also have 3 copies of Ranger Watchman. I am very much on the 50-50 with this card. I like generally what it does. I particularly like that it's unrestricted, so you could have up down to 4 of it in play. I only have 3 copies again, but the quick draw ability in this deck doesn't really pay too much. I got a couple of weapons here we're going to be looking at later, but I'm predominantly using this Ranger Watchman just to have more meat down, to be a unit that can go into battle. And of course, that second effect, each time the attrition step ends here and your opponent has attrition remaining, this character is power +2 until end of turn. That's actually a pretty good way to win battles, because if your opponent, let's say, has one of those Kaizens that can't take any attrition, then they will definitely have outstanding attrition, or you manage to just completely get rid of their, well, basically damage all their units, and there's still some outstanding attrition there, then you're going to be power +3, perhaps dealing another 3 damage. That's absolutely fantastic. Moving on, we've got 3 copies of Mouthpiece, and again, predominantly because it's a XeLabs unit, same with Ranger Watchman. Again, we got that quick draw effect, and that's really the only reason why I have a few weapons in here, is just so that we can use Mouthpiece's second effect, which is when this character enters play, you may pay 2 force, or energy even, sorry, if you do download a weapon, so we can just take those They take those 3 weapons out of our deck with the use of Mouthpiece, and just shrink the deck down a little bit so we can get to our better Destiny cards a little bit more easily. And again, predominantly because it is a XeLabs unit as well. For the remaining XeLabs unit, and definitely the units I like to play with Optical Delusion the most, are the raver Shrouds. As long as you have a card stacked on your stockpile asset, this character is tactics +4. Of course, we are running stockpile assets in the deck, and if you can drop these guys and immediately, be able to get yourself up, particularly in the case of perhaps having a ranger watchman alone in a battle at tactics 1, now you can add another 4. You're guaranteed to have your battle destiny now, which is fantastic. But just generally dropping this guy at any point, anywhere, and you got your stockpile asset with a card stacked under it, you immediately get that battle destiny, which is fantastic. Trying to get these cards out of the deck as soon as possible due to the low destiny value. But again, these are warriors. What I haven't mentioned is that the Mouthpiece is the only card in the deck that's a merchant. It's not a warrior. All the other ones we've looked at so far are warriors. I'm just saying that for corporate headquarters, Earth corporate headquarters. And then these last 3 units are also not warriors. They are Kaizen, and they just allow us some peeking on the top of our deck. I was running 4 sizing coordinators in here, but you can't really drop them with Optical Delusion. Mind you, the Tactics 3 is really good. I've taken one out, replaced it with a Jostle Swim, just so we have a unit that we can protect from attrition, and also the effect that we can choose the top 3 of our cards for Battle Destiny is really strong. That can help quite a lot in many of the battles, particularly in a deck like this where you actually have probably below average destiny values in your deck. So it's nice to be able to peek at the top, see what you're gonna draw, and we're also running a particular card that also allows us to add destiny. So if you play that at the location where Jostle Swin is, then for that effect you can also look at the top 3 and not just the one, which is really cool. So these are our Kaizen helpers. And then just for vehicles, I wanted to run a chief vehicle that's easy to drop, but it can have a large impact, and that is the GR Blade. Again, not restricted, so you can have up to 4 of these in play. Unfortunately, there are no XeLabs vehicles, but also ultimately it is what it is. As long as you can have this in play and then drop something to support it with Optical Delusion, or just generally as well, it's a pretty good call in my opinion. So cheap units, size 2, transport 1, okay, usual stuff. But you can pay for energy as many times as you want, and if this vehicle is at a side battle, make your Battle Destiny +2 in that battle, and you can do this as many times as you want. So this can boost your Battle Destiny to ridiculous amounts. And this is that kind of balancing factor. So if you see a GR Blade, try and get it into play, a strategic area, so you're gonna get that benefit, and try and keep the 4 energies that you can add that as well. It is expensive, but it is very impactful if you get it off. So for the weapons, I am running a copy of Sidearm and 2 copies of FLIC. Now, the reason why I mentioned the Warriors besides the corporate headquarters is because of the 2 copies of FLIC in the deck. I am struggling to choose between these 2 decks, and again, I probably do a bit more playtesting to see how often actually warriors do come down to warrant FLIC more than sidearms. I only also have 1 copy of sidearms, but I do like that it costs nothing. Nevertheless, we can pull any one of these 3 cards out with Mouthpiece, and we also have, of course, guys with Quick Draw. So the pay 1, pay 3 effects, they can be used twice, not just the once, as the little pips suggest there. I do like that they, regardless of which weapon they are, they will add +1 to the attrition, which is of course good to have, but really this is just about being able to damage uh, damage units in our opponent's side. And sometimes the sidearm can be good if you have one of the raver shrouds, or you have Rogan Hallard in a battle. But sometimes the FLIC can give you even more of a bonus, or at least equal amounts of bonus for just having, maybe 3 warriors in play here. The FLIC can be wielded by 1 warrior, that also counts. So you get this, and really it's down to playstyle as well. If you want to include a bit more warriors, if you want to drop the XeLabs idea, mind you, then you're changing the core of the deck, but it is absolutely up to you what you do. So our stockpile asset are 3 copies of a Trigenium Surplus. Again, only 3 because I only have 3 copies. I don't know if I would run a 4th one though. You can only have 1 in play anyway, but I do like that it's got a destiny number of 6, and you really just want to see it. That's the core. So you can pay 1 energy once a turn. If there is no card stacked here, your opponent loses 1 energy and stacks that card face down on this asset. This works pretty well with the Sycin coordinators. We can actually look at our opponent's top card of their deck and hopefully tuck one of their more strategically important cards under the Trigenium Surplus. And the rest you can just keep in circulation, and you have yourself a nice little 6/4 destiny, which is, well, that's basically the best you can get in this game. I know you can get 7s, but far and few between. I'm also rocking 3 copies of Defensive Grid. You can only play once per turn, and it is a Lost Interrupt, but as I said, particularly combos really well with Jossel's Win. You may play this interrupt only during a battle at a location where you have more than 1 support icon. That's where the encampments come into play. And make your battle destiny in that battle +1 destiny. So you basically flip another destiny. It gives you an extra destiny. Again, a destiny number of 6. I like to see that. And more destiny is always better than less. And then finally, we're running 4 expansions. That's just to guarantee that we get our Venus encampments out into play as soon as possible. And then however you want to play those encampments is down to you. The encampments are one of the best things in this game, realistically. You can give yourself more energy, more support icons. Yes, you make that particular location more strategically valuable for your opponent to come and control, but that's where you need cards that allow you to defend that particular location. Or you can just run it out as a regular sector, which is good because obviously we are trying to compete both in space and ground. It's a bit of a 50-50 deck. Now, again, with any of the decks, with any of the deck profiles I do, they do require some more testing because I get very little testing time with these decks, unfortunately. Not many people want to play Wars, generally speaking, and even less people actually play Wars in the United Kingdom. It's not one of those games that's easy to play online. Both of you really need to have each other's locations at least out in the front of your screen to be able to at least get a basically good idea as to who's moving where and what's happening. So if you do play in the UK and you are interested in playing in person every once in a while, I'll meet you halfway through the distance. Let me know, and we can have an afternoon full of Wars games. I can also bring a few decks with me, but even better if you bring your own as well. So this is an open invitation to anybody in the UK who is not a mass murderer and wants to play Wars, the card game, this one, the science fiction one. So anyway, guys, yeah, thanks for joining me, and Merry Christmas again to all of you guys. I'll see you again, probably one more video this year, and then we'll carry on in 2023. Oh, by the way, we have 400 subscribers. Yay! Peace.